Hello, welcome to the Friday weekly voice chat. This is the Men's Human Rights Discord server. We're the semi-official server of the Men's Rights subreddit. Today's topic is false accusations, mostly of sexual assault, and how it relates to Title IX. This is a common debate between MRAs and feminists. How common are false accusations of sexual assault? MRAs have the position that it's more common than feminists would claim, and feminists would claim that false accusations are in fact very rare. The reality is, MRAs are concerned about false rape because we hear about them happening all the time. There are famous cases such as Brian Banks' case, who was a football player who spent years in jail and derailed his career. And then there are the cases that you never hear about. You know, the friend that you know that got accused, or a classmate that you know that got accused. False rape accusations happen enough so that men think about them. Men are aware of them. It's not something that we choose to worry about for no reason. Now, actually put a position, exact percentage, what do I think the rates are? I'm going to show you this article from AP. So I do follow the Friday text chat channel, the text part of this. Some people consider it to be not only as much of a main event as the voice chat, but the main event is the chat. But anyway, this is an article that was written when Brett Kavanaugh was being confirmed, looking at false rape accusations and different percentages. And in this very article, you have, let me get some screenshots. You have a study that says 40%. You have a study that says 8%. You have a study that says 18%. You have a study that says 90%. You know, the studies are all over the place as to exactly what the percentages are. I think it's very difficult to pin a number on false accusations because of the nature of the crime. It's difficult to prove, and feminists do have a good point when they say there's probably women who are afraid to report it or who don't take it seriously. Anyone who's seen the show The Wire, HBO, knows how police departments are sometimes under pressure to juke the stats and, you know, try and make rapes disappear. So I don't deny at all that are there problems with rape victims being taken seriously? Absolutely. And that's something that MRAs, I want to make very clear, we are not against rape victims getting justice. We are not against putting rapists in prison. I think rape is a serious crime, and I think it should carry a mandatory jail term, prison term. No MRA is disputing that. So oftentimes we're accused of, you know, trying to erase victims. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is there's a lot of data that shows that false accusations are not super rare, but in fact more common than feminists would say. Let me take another screenshot from the article that is going to show you again more conflicting statistics. I'm going to post this one. Okay, now take a look at what I've highlighted here. You can see the top one says, you know, presenting a figure of around 2%. And then the second paragraph says, in the Pentagon report, nearly one quarter, 25% were thrown out to be false. Let's keep going down at the, let's see if there's any more. Okay, and then here we have another one from the Pentagon and another one from a feminist organization, once again, being at odds with each other. I'm going to post a third link from this article. You can see, hold on, here it's posting now. Okay, so you can see the top one, the Pentagon is saying 18%. And now you see the third highlighted line. The National Sexual Violence Resource Center puts the false report rate at 2% to 10%. So, you know, we've seen anywhere from 2% to 40% in a single article. What is the exact percentage? I'm not going to say I have an answer. Again, I think it's very hard to calculate, but I think it's common enough so that you hear about it enough to think about. No, and I think it's a falsehood that MRAs are just trying to make this an issue to erase rape victims, because there's no logic to that. Why would we somehow, why, you know, unless the implication is we just want to be able to get away with committing rape, which would be rather absurd seeing as the men's rights movement is so relatively, compared to feminism, gender balanced. Why would, even in this chat, there are women in this chat right now, why would you have women speak on behalf of this issue Darkisha, Katrina, who's in this chat right now, who I hope will talk about this, she's actually part of a group, Women Against False Accusations. What motive would women have to do that kind of work if not for the fact that they know men who have been affected by false accusations? Now, specifically, a problem that we talk about is Title IX and how Title IX addresses accusations of sexual assault on college campus. Betsy DeVos got a lot of controversy when she tried to get rid of the quote unquote kangaroo courts that occur at universities when it comes to accusations of rape. But I gotta say, I would agree with the description kangaroo court, because the system that universities have are ridiculous. And there are so many cases of students being expelled without any real due process. And an MRA position is that for something as serious as sexual assaults, this is a police matter. And if the police find that a student is innocent, if the police don't find sufficient evidence to press charges, then the university should not have the right to take it upon themselves to say, well, court system and the police forensic evidence found this person is not guilty, but we're going to expel them anyway. And that's a position that MRAs have, that we often debate with feminists. So thank you everybody who is joining, especially Tim Goldich, president of the National Coalition for Men. I'm going to open the floor now if anyone would like to say anything. Mr. Goldich, I know you've done a lot of work on this topic, and Dark, I know that you do a lot of work on this topic as well. So the floor is open, and welcome.
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to say I'm not the president, I'm the vice president of the National Coalition for Men.
Yes,
And,
my apologies. I misspoke.
uh,
Harry Crouch is the president.
right. And one piece that I'd like to add to this is it's not just false accusation. Men are extremely vulnerable to accusations of all kinds, including trivial accusations. He was staring at me, he brushed up against me, he told an off-color joke, and so on. And also, there's a very deadly form of accusation that occurred to a friend of mine. He was telling the story of being in court, trying to gain custody of his kids, and his wife told the story of seeing him rubbing oil on his naked 14-year-old girl's chest, and how the court sort of gasped, and the prosecution asked, is this true? You've done this heinous thing, and he just says, well, yeah, and another gasp, and then finally he gets to say, well, my daughter has bronchitis, and I was rubbing Vicks Vapor Rub on her chest. But you see, the accusation already damned him. Just to plant the image in the courtroom's mind of him rubbing this stuff on his quote unquote naked 14-year-old girl's chest, you see. So it's not just not just false accusations. It's men are way over vulnerable to accusations in general. So that's just a point I wanted to add.
And can I also say something as well?
Sure.
Here's the thing. False accusations completely mutes real victims of sexual assault's voices. What they don't understand is that false accusations will eventually end up hurting females later on, because there's going to be so many false accusations that the real accusations, the women that were actually assaulted, those voices won't matter. Those voices won't be heard. And to the point where, the counseling that they'll have to endure for the women that were actually falsely accused, for the women that were actually assaulted, they'll wither away, like mentally, spiritually, they'll wither away. And that's not helpful. They don't realize that false accusations is very harmful for the female gender as well. it is super harmful and is super damaging, because on the off chance that, there happens to be like two women that do a false accusation, and then there's in that friend group, and then there happens to be one victim that is an actual victim, not just a false accuser, and something actually did happen to her, that one person is not going to be believed for the same fact.
Yes, I agree with you. I think any gender political falsehood adversely affects both sexes.
Well, I think the problem is not that they don't realise it, but that they do, and they are throwing men under the bus. Basically, my theory on what they think is that they know that false accusations are prevalent, but from what I've seen of their media, they try to hush it up because they don't want to have it broadcast that these things are real, because then that would hurt female victims. And it would also imply that there are male victims, which they also hate the idea of. So they think of it as throwing men under the bus in order to help women. But they don't realise that what they're creating is a larger and larger situation of false accusations where it just becomes worse and worse as time goes on, until the point where we can have a tip over into no women being believed. Because, I mean, if so many accusations are false, it's just going to make it look like, those false accusations are the majority, and the covering up doesn't help, because when people realise there's a cover up, it's going to make it look like there's millions of them, and they may even be in the majority. And I've actually been the victim of them suppressing this information, because I tried to post a study in this is actually how I got banned from Reddit. I posted a study in the fake feminist men's server, men's sub, sorry, that they run on Reddit that I won't name. And well, have a look at what it says. Basically, this is just one image from it, and it's essentially there are twice as many malicious accusations in family courts in Australia as there are real ones. And it's I mean, this one only really shows the it doesn't really show the true depths of what's going on there, but it gives you an idea of what's happening there. And it's kind of nightmarish. The lawyers have cottoned onto this to the point where false accusations are something they just school their client to use when their client is female, so that their client can get a huge payout and that they can reap the rewards of that. And that's created a situation where we don't even know how many false accusations there are, because there are just so many. And this is something we've got confirmation from judges as well. We've had retired judges and others telling us that it's absolutely rampant, and when they get a false accusation, they often just don't believe it out of complete, being overwhelmed by all the accusations they get. So if this gives you an idea of what's happening when there is money on the line, then you should then not try and transfer this onto everyday situations so much, because while these accusations are motivated, we can't actually know what the actual percentage is from this, because
and not in criminal courts, just civil courts or family courts.
Yeah, because these are
wanted...
women who are being schooled in it. Sorry, carry on, Aragon. I'll just post the study itself.
Oh, thank you. Something that I wanted to say about the information studies. So, a lot of these studies that have percentages still, I'm not denying that it is a problem, and obviously, even if it was around 5%, which seems to be around that 5 to 10%, it would still be a problem because, no, like, no one should go to jail that hasn't committed a crime. But like when we see studies, even the Pentagon study that was mentioned, the 2012, actually, I think it's annual, anyways. So it puts the sexual assault rates, like the false sexual assault rates, at 17%. But it seems that like what it classifies as baseless or unfounded are like or like what it classifies as false basically seem to be like seem to just be accusations without evidence, which is like incredibly different. And the same goes for the 90%. The 90% ones usually are studies which take into account like how many people weren't convicted that were accused, and like these are obviously not the false rates. Like this is just a mischaracterization. Yeah, I just wanted like most of the studies which I have seen, the more quality ones, so to speak, seem to be around 5 to 10% as a maximum. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you. Also, this is like UK, Europe, or USA. So, of course, in places like India or other places in the world, it will be very different.
I do think we need to be aware that these are conviction stats very usually. As I can show you, something isn't very known in our community even is that when the false accusations are counted, they're only counted from like people who are basically admitting that they're falsely accusing, and even then the police are instructed to ignore it as much as possible. But when you look at people who are convicted and then who are later set free and their names cleared, like as that guy Blue mentioned, the footballer, the statistic rises drastically, even in the official stats, which are, as I said, nerfed by agenda.
I was just going to say, ladies and gentlemen, rape is the easiest crime to accuse somebody of, but the hardest one to prove. And as far as false allegations go, as they're seldom tried within a criminal court or even investigated by the police, it's almost impossible to know what the reality of false accusations are. And I've posted an example of one in the voice chat, which was Mark Pearson. Most people from the UK, particularly in the men's rights movement in the UK, will be aware of what happened to Mark Pearson. And the woman that accused him not only was not tried for her false allegation, a gagging order was put in place to prevent her name being released to the public. And when somebody did release it to the public, they were held in contempt of court.
Yeah, contempt of court is actually one of the, I think, 2 crimes you can be charged with if you are a false accuser. I'm not sure what the other one was. It was something very technical, but that is essentially what they do. They don't. It's not under a specific crime. It's basically just shuffled off into this rather vague sounding category, which obviously makes it very difficult for us to determine exactly how many false accusers actually get charged, even because they're all just bundled into this one thing. And contempt of court is like such a wide category that it's this includes people who give the judge the finger. So it's
Can I read a quote from Warren Farrell that's relevant? Now, this is from.
what was that, Tim?
Yes, I'd like to read a quote from Warren Farrell.
Oh, please do. You don't have to ask.
Okay. So Warren writes, with these admitted false accusations, Dr. Charles McDowell was able to develop 35 criteria distinguishing false accusations and those known to be genuine. 3 independent judges then examined the remainder of the cases. Only if all 3 reviewers independently concluded that the original rape allegations were false did they rank them as false. The total of false accusations became 60%. Rather than publicize the study as an antidote to the Tallyhook scandal, you may recall that from way back, the study was buried. Dr. Charles McDowell was ostracized and moved to the Air Force equivalent of being sent to Siberia. So there exists out there, studies that show, data that indicates, right? I mean, everything has to be taken with a grain of salt, but there is evidence to the fact that false rape accusations may be quite common.
Could you list the study below?
If I have the technical know-how here on Discord, where is the chat? Is there a chat?
It's 2 channels above you in the Friday live stream section.
Here.
Just
okay. All right, I'll post that right now.
By the way, men are human. I see here that, like, when it comes to fully, like, from every crime, overturn wrongful convictions are like 151 in 2018, which, like, that's not enough for 10% of the even if those were from all crimes, that from just rape, they wouldn't be enough to just to basically raise the percentage to, like, by 10%.
Well, a
I'm not
point
sure I follow
MRAs
you there.
often make is that it's not just the accusations that go to court. There are accusations that may go around a campus or go around a workplace where there's never a conviction, or there's never even a charge or an arrest, or that the police don't get involved at all, but the man's social life is now destroyed. So that
Yeah, I completely agree with that, especially with professional settings and universities, as there is no accountability or procedure in those stuff.
Yeah, a man's career can a whole man's career, life, possibly marriage can be ended by the fact of a false accusation of either sexual assault, sexual harassment, and that's just that's bad.
Are any of you aware of the Fort Amherst? Sorry, the Amherst College incident from a good 10 years ago now?
Do you want to elaborate about that incident, Peter?
Yeah, sure. I was just wondering if anyone heard of it.
Wasn't that the 19-year-old girl that falsely accused a man of rape and ruined his career because of it?
Oh yeah, you're talking about Mattress Girl.
No, it's not Mattress Girl. This is another one.
Oh god.
There was an incident at Amherst College in America.
Oh yes. Why do you think it? Yes, I've heard of it.
Right, the woman involved took a drunken guy back to her dorm, and she was basically in the mood for extracurricular fun, we'll call it. He was too intoxicated to do anything, so she performed an act on him. and then basically left him and went to find somebody else who she engaged in sexual activity with. And then she accused the drunken lad of rape and had him kicked out of the college. And when the media got hold of it, there was actual text messages from the girl to her friends and other people telling them what she had done, and the college refused to take the messages as evidence in the boy's defense.
And if I recall correctly, and I may be misspeaking here, I remember a whole slew of articles on all the different feminist websites and blogs, places like Vox and places like feministing.com, all defending her and all saying how it was an example of victim shaming, even after the text came out.
Little tip, guys,
Well,
if
the
she's had
big-
more than little tip, guys, if she's had more than two, just leave her alone. You stay you stay like 3 feet away from her.
The major issue though with that as well.
That sounds an awful lot like what Amy Schumer did. Because Amy Schumer basically did that exact same thing and then did a comedy sort of stand-up routine about it, where she was talking about how he was falling asleep and how he, couldn't keep it up, and like this guy was comatose in a bed basically, and she took advantage of him. She was sober, he was definitely not, and it's become basically a joke to her, and yeah, she's gotten completely away with it, and people are defending her. Well, people were defending her, they've forgotten about it now. She's also done other things that sound very similar. It's yeah, if you're a woman, you are immune to 99% of all accusations, and if you're a man, people will simply believe 99% of accusations about you.
Well, just to keep it still in the topic, well, it is in the topic. Everyone's talking about the topic, but we were talking about originally with this more of like a Title IX thing. I think another issue too is this right here is a screenshot. Now I don't know how old this document is. I will be completely honest. I don't know why they don't have a date on this document, but this is a summary of the Title IX final rule, the major provisions, and section which I have in the screenshot is their definition of sexual harassment for Title IX purposes. Issue 1, which is what I highlighted, is the final rule defines sexual harassment broadly to include any of 3 types of misconduct on the basis of sex, all of which jeopardize equal access to education that Title IX is designed to protect. Basically, any instance of quid pro quo harassment by a school's employee, any unwelcome conduct that a reasonable person would find so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive that it denies the person equal education access. The next part, I'll explain in a second, but this first part is extremely concerning in the fact that allowing this broadness and this allowing schools to be so vague and broad on the definitions of sexual assault and what determines it, as I said, unwelcome conduct that a unreasonable person would find so severe, or that reasonable person would find severe. So any action that a supposed reasonable person, which basically means could be anybody, could find so severe can be considered harassment. That's problem 1. So then basically you just give a person a hug and it's considered harassment or assault or other things. And then the second part of it, the any instance of sexual assault is defined in the Clary Act. That's where the problem comes in, more related to what you guys were talking about with guys being raped. There's an instance recently that's sort of all over TikTok and YouTube about a kid named Jack Wright and his friend Sienna Mae, and she groped him and she assaulted him. And it's sort of under wraps right now, but she won't obviously take responsibility of what's going on. But, we have an issue where the definition of rape doesn't include rape towards men at all. A woman to a man.
I've seen the TikTok video of what actually happened between that Sienna May and the guy. Yeah, she's banged her rights. Unfortunately, nobody wants to see her being prosecuted because she's a woman. I was just reading that article you were referencing, Darkisha. It says also about domestic violence as defined in the Violence Against Women Act.
Which we all know is not. The Violence Against Women's Act loves being as one-sided as possible. And
Another-
sorry.
Trina, could you talk about your group that you're a part of, Women Against False Accusations, a little bit?
Sure. Obviously, I can't say much. There's a lot of ongoing cases. A lot of people who are currently experiencing this. Names can't be said or anything. But generally, Women Against False Accusations is currently. We do have some males in the group. But a majority, of course, of the population is mothers and some fathers of children who have been falsely accused. We have a big membership because of the amount of kids who have been falsely accused. Most of these kids have been accused between high school and college. Some of them have been accused as adults. And, it's more of sort of like a support group. And then we also try to bring awareness and do stuff and do events to get things done about false accusations and just how little they're cared about and just how little they'll put a person in jail for. It's pure absurdity. It's I don't even know where to get started with some of these, honestly. People come in there and they'll tell you just the craziest things. That there will have been absolutely completely nothing. Sometimes there'll even be evidence to prove that the person wasn't there or didn't do it, and they still will find some way to convict this person of supposed rape or assault.
To me, the fact that this. Sorry, go on.
I also think that there's a big, money. There's a lot of skin in the game financially. If either the prosecutor prosecutes somebody or whatever, unfortunately, the male gender has to basically be the cash cow for a lot of lawyers and attorneys that want to get these conviction rates and get these prosecution rates up so high that they're not even willing to see that a lot of these men are innocent and have been wrongfully convicted of these crimes. And that for me is honestly,
Madison, my father gave me the best advice, okay? When it comes to any kind of court case you end up into, any kind of court you enter to, and it's so sad, but so true. When you enter the court, you're immediately screwed because everyone's a lawyer. Your lawyer is a lawyer, the prosecutor's a lawyer, and the judge is a lawyer, and they're trying to figure out how they can get the most out of you.
exactly.
And it's even worse for men.
Which is why, men are basically the money-making machines whenever it comes to lawyers whenever it comes to it having to get the court involved anyway, because it's $1 billion bureaucratic BS idea whenever the men are wrongfully convicted.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say on Katrina's group, I had the pleasure of joining them the other night. And I'm sure Katrina will tell you, but I had my head in my hands on multiple occasions. I can't believe the legal system is able to get away with the things it's able to get away with.
Yeah, and theory
Another
self-create.
dimension.
One at a time,
Another
guys. One at a
dimension
time.
can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Another like dimension in wrongful accusations is also, and something that we have seen like especially lately a lot of. When a woman is to be prosecuted for a crime she has done, she often pleads that she has like been a victim of domestic or sexual abuse in order to lighten her sentence. And we saw that, for instance, with what was the name of that like Theranos lady? I don't remember. We even saw like similar claims by I don't remember the women's names. I'm sorry. But it was in the, you know, that female partner of Epstein. In which basically they both basically try to use
You're thinking of Ghislaine Maxwell as
oh
Epstein's
yes,
partner.
yeah. Basically, we do see that a lot, like when some women are to face like criminal punishment, they will often like speak of different types of harassment in order to appear less culpable of the crime they have done.
The
Although
big ones are always he forced me, he abused me, coupled with they'll just a lot of the time it's this sudden distancing thing, or they'll use the man to try and take as much of the blame as possible, and surprisingly he's often on board with that because of how much men care about women. Like you see this in a lot of murderous couple cases where they'll talk about the man, and then later on you'll find out, if you read through a lot of stuff, that was actually a woman involved, and she was just as involved. A good example of this is the toy box killers plural, because they often say just killer, but actually it was a family thing, and the wife was involved. The husband was, the one who got all the blame, but I'm pretty sure his son was involved as well. I mean, they were streaming like live footage straight to their living room of this, so everyone knew in the house that it was happening. But anyway, moving back, we should talk about the Title IX thing, especially specifically, because that's where false accusations become the most kangaroo courtish. And I do think Mattress Girl is a good example of that, in that she made her false accusation, and then she turned it into an art piece, basically roving around the campus with her mattress and so on. Harlan, did you want to talk about this, or is this something separate? Okay, well, I mean, I don't remember all the details of the Mattress Girl case, but if somebody else wants to take over from that, please do.
Mattress Girl was basically a false accusation based on her then boyfriend not wanting to perform certain acts in the bedroom, and she didn't like it.
I remember that she went on to quote unquote reenact her rape, which is not something real rape victims do. That is absolutely not something a real rape victim does. Like they don't.
Basically, she carried around a mattress. She carried around a mattress all around campus for the entire semester, making it a massive public spectacle. And I think that has been to date one of the biggest Title IX lawsuit cases that I can think of. And I do believe he was cleared. I don't know if he was criminal or a civil court, but I know he has not been found guilty. I don't know warrants, and I don't know if it was in civil or criminal court, but he did get some degree of vindication. His name is Ness or something.
To be honest, probably best not to actually say his name, because unlike her, he's an innocent party to this. And this is why a lot of
He's public
MRAs
about
are.
it. He's public about it. He doesn't shy from this. He's written articles. He's not. He doesn't hide.
Oh, fair enough then.
His innocence was pretty well indicated by the text messages that they sent back and forth. In other words, there were texts sent back and forth to the effect of, I love you, why don't you come over tonight? These sort of things that the mattress girl was sending him even after she claimed to have been raped.
Yeah, this is something that has actually prompted feminists to try and prevent text messages and phones being considered evidence in a trial. They have done their best to try and stop police seizing her phone as evidence, or his phone even. They don't want these messages in the court. They don't want. I mean, this was a big part of the false accusation crisis in the UK, which was briefly very famous, where a feminist chief prosecutor basically had the police lying about evidence and covering up evidence in order to secure more convictions. That seems to be changing now, because the next prosecutor they inserted was apparently, like, I don't know about anti-feminist, but certainly wanted to fix this, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, that's the one, the Liam Allen case. But there was something like 40 other cases that were in question after that, and I don't know what the result of that was. But they want to make it law that you can't go through the woman's phone, because they know just how often this is out of spite, and they want to cover that up. And they know that text messages after the fact often tell a very damning and very different story to what the accuser is saying. This is another reason that we really, as a movement, want to secure anonymity for both parties in trials like this until the conclusion. Go on, man.
Yeah, because the female, I'm just gonna reveal. Sorry, Darkisha. Sorry to any female MRA in this thing, but our phones are basically just our diaries now. It has our worst. It has our deepest, darkest secrets in there. I mean, I think it's crazy. Why can't you put it in a journal where you can burn it and then there's no paper trail after? That makes more sense. But that is where a lot that's pretty much where all of our dirt is in our phones. It's stored in our phones because women are very, very, typically according to studies, they're very, very social. We're very, very social creatures. And so it makes sense that the majority of the evidence, or a good chunk of it anyway, would be stored in our phones whenever it comes to proving the innocence of someone that's being falsely accused of sexual assault and rape. So, I mean, Katrina, you could probably say that is 100% true.
We should probably also bring up the Mean Girls case. This was a case that happened quite a while ago, but it happened to a high school boy. And the reason I bring it up is because the motive was, quote, "we just didn't like him." And so they ruined this boy's life. They spread rumors all over the school. They lied to the police. They lied to their parents, and the boy got sent to juvenile jail. And I think they put an ankle tag on him. And then it all came out they were liars, and they suffered no repercussions whatsoever. And yeah, that's the one. And I was just going to say there's a lawsuit, but I don't know what happened to it. I guess it got
dismissed
because apparently they didn't do anything wrong to this poor boy whose life they ruined, and who may or may not commit suicide at some point because of all of this. Because that's a major thing that people miss in all of this, is that when this happens to you, your life socially is over, and possibly physically as well, because men don't like rapists. And if you've got a girl going around saying that this person raped me, then the men will quite often corner that person and even beat them to a pulp or kill them. I mean, this is what lynchings were. In a large respect, it was some mean girl saying something mean about some black guy she didn't like because he walked past her or something, and she's a racist. And she tells all the other people that, he said something sexual to her or something, and they're like, right, and they string him up from a cherry tree or something. I mean, obviously, the male racists just don't care on the same level as the female racists, so they're quite happy to string up an innocent black man. But
It's a very interesting one. It's a kind of an interesting trap for feminists because they do acknowledge the racism behind false accusations, but by doing so, they then contradict themselves when they say a woman wouldn't lie about being raped. So I always find, I hate to say it in like a cheerful kind of tone, and I hate to, make it a gotcha, but it really kind of is a gotcha. Asks feminists, well, do you agree that black men were lynched and murdered on false accusations in the past in the US? And I'll almost always say yes, because that undeniably happens. But then, by doing so, have to admit that people do exist, women do exist, who would lie. And to that point, I've always had a problem with the hashtag believe women. And I'm going to do an article one day on how feminists are now denying that it was believe all women. It did start out as believe all women. But here's the thing. Why would one gender be inherently more honest than the other? It's not misogynistic to say that sometimes women lie, because it's not sexist to say sometimes men lie, right? I mean, if you acknowledge that there are human beings that happen to be male that sometimes lie, then why can't you acknowledge that there are human beings who happen to be female who sometimes lie? And if people are evil enough to commit rape, then why would people be evil enough to accuse someone of committing rape? I mean, if people are evil enough to commit murder, why would people be evil enough to lie?
I'm going to make
Ethnocentrism. One word answer right there.
I'm going to make a joke. I'm going to say, okay, we'll all admit the majority of politicians are men. And what do politicians do a lot? They lie. So guess what? Men can lie. Same way that women can lie as well. So it makes sense.
The problem
also
is
something.
I don't think that was a joke so much as a statement of reality, to be honest.
Also, something to recognize is that the nature of false accusation never really changed. Like, it's still overwhelming. Like, it disproportionately affects like black men. Not just like sexual accusations, but like all kinds of. Wait, I forgot. Whatever. I had something to say, but I forgot.
Honestly,
if everyone would,
sorry.
I was going to say, if everyone just wants to have a look in the chat, I've put 2 articles. One from the Metro, which is a sort of newspaper over here, of where a mother of a child that was falsely accused of rape and then later on killed himself. She killed herself a year later. There's also a video on YouTube from 60 Minutes Australia of an innocent man who was falsely accused by his girlfriend of not only domestic abuse but sexual assault and what have you. And that was after she got into a secondary relationship with a police officer in the town.
Oh yeah, I
the-
just remembered. What I wanted to say is that, like, we also need to acknowledge, like, the paradoxical nature of the phrase, like, believe all victims, since how would you know they're victims before you believe them, you know?
To go back to what Blue was saying about the believe women thing on Twitter, they do deny it now that they originally said believe all women. But if you actually go back to October, right after the Kavanaugh case, I can't remember the year exactly, but if you go to that October, right after the Kavanaugh case, you'll see there's a hard line where believe all women suddenly stops being spoken about, and then it becomes believe victims, believe survivors, and all that sort of stuff. And I think that it was right after the Kavanaugh case ended, and it was quite apparent that like this was a 30-year-old fuzzy accusation that didn't really have a lot behind it, to to put it gently. But
and also just started getting used against them because, let's be completely honest here, feminists do not like female MRAs, and it was funny because I started seeing that pop up on like some female MRAs videos and then things that were sort of like positive towards the male direction, and they absolutely just hated the fact that it was being used in that way.
Yeah,
if I recall, some of the witnesses in the Brett Kavanaugh hearing, Dr. Blasey Ford is the woman who made the accusation. Some of the people who testified to police on her behalf later recanted and took back what they said.
And a lot of people who were supposed to be like witnesses to it actually said that nothing happened, from what I gather. But this is just another one of those things. They still believe it. A lot of these people, they still believe that she was telling the absolute truth and stuff like that. They just can't say it in public anymore. And I think that was actually one of the first, not turning points, but like little ripples before the tidal wave, which is the reversal we're now just starting to see, where people are waking up to what's really going on with all this mind-numbingly crazy ideology that's going around. And I think it was because of the racial angle, really, that people are starting to really wake up to it. But I do think there's an undercurrent of people waking up to the gender stuff as well. It's I am hopeful with it.
Deshaun Watson was the grand jury decided not to pursue charges against him. There's 22 women who accused him of inappropriate conduct, and it's looking like they're all liars, I guess, just like Bill Cosby.
No, I think Deshaun's guilty. I think maybe some of the women are made it up, but the 22, he's got to be guilty of most of them. There's just too much smoke. Women who never knew each other before, who had no connection, all making very, very similar claims. I think he's guilty.
The issue with the Cosby situation, though, is that
being charged.
I would say the issue, though you brought up Cosby, the issue with the Cosby situation is obviously there's going to be some false accusations in there. There also might be some true ones. We don't really know the story. The reality is the time period of it is something that we don't have much documentation of, and was a completely crazy period because you had people doing let's be honest, drugs, smoking, and drinking all the time. And so we don't really know what happened on either side of whatever's going on. So there probably is a few real cases, and there's probably a lot of false accusations in there too, because he's Bill Cosby, he has money, and as we point out, false accusations are a great way of getting money.
Not to mention,
in the UK, you don't have to pay back any of the money you get from special victim things, even if you're proven lying, if in this particular case. So you can actually make hundreds of grand this way. There was a very famous false accuser in the UK who bragged about getting money this way. But yeah, this is why we like our examples to be very cut and dried when it comes to things like this. We don't want to muddy the waters by bringing out men who never really saw court over this, or never really, like, there's there might be a case, there might not be a case, stuff like that. We've got to be very clear that we are not against charging people who are absolutely guilty. What we're against is the cover-up of those who are victims of the accuser. And I'm kind of astonished that people can know that, like, women were the majority accusers during witch hunts and things like that, or at least at Salem they were, and know that, during black men were lynched for the same reason and stuff like that, and yet suddenly in this circumstance, no woman can lie. And I think this is the premise of the Title IX courts, essentially. The kangaroo courts in colleges. Their premise is essentially that the accuser cannot lie, and therefore the accused doesn't need to, be able to present any information in evidence or anything, like have a lawyer, stuff
Kangaroo
like that. They
courts
just
are
sit there and
literally just pure prosecution. You do not get a lawyer. You do not get witnesses. You get nothing. You stand there and you let them decide your fate over the words from someone's mouth. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah, that's essentially how it works, and that is essentially how they want it to work. And they've been quite clear on this, that they want it to work as woman accuses man, man goes to jail. End of story. And honestly, in places like Spain, it actually does work a lot like that.
Not to mention,
and ask you later.
Not to mention the, Vicari, on the court is very much so, negative on the other side, where, the person actually did the crime and the person doesn't get properly prosecuted and gets away with it as well. Yes, there is obvious evidence of that. There was a 16-year-old girl that was brutally raped, and, the court did nothing about it. Nothing. And that's appalling to me, which means that there is obvious corruption on both sides. And it does hurt everybody. The corruptness of the court system hurts everyone. It hurts everybody's careers, everybody's lives, and then it hurts everybody's just overall basic human well-being. It's not exactly the court system is freaking corrupt. That's what we have to change. We have to change the court system. We have to change how they decide to go about prosecuting people, and we have to change how they basically offer sentences to people.
You're right and you're wrong about that. We need to change that. We also just need to change the process of which these cases come in, whether they come in at the dean at the school level because of Title IX kangaroo courts, which is a whole thing, or just criminal court in general. Because, one of the biggest issues, as you bring up, the real victims, okay, that might sound, I know some people might get tricked. Let me think of a better word. The real people who are hurt by this cannot get help because there's such an influx of cases that the real ones just get taken practically. I mean, some of them do get taken care of, obviously. There are a lot that are left out. And then on top of that, there's this whole situation of, stereotyping, which is the process is unbelievable. The deans is more likely to do something about a person who falsely accused someone than they are about a person who's actually getting assaulted, stalked, raped, etc. Same with the court system. When you go to file a complaint and you say I got raped or something like that, a real victim is less likely to end up being heard because of the fact that there is just this impracticality within that hearing and looking through those documents from, first of all, just as I said, the influx of it, and then secondly, just the bias which has now been placed in that system towards men and women. It's unbelievable. I mean, this entire cancel culture and modern culture and supposedly, oh, we're accepting everyone, we're getting better. No, we're not. All we're doing is making what we were trying to supposedly stop in the first place even worse. You're making less people heard because you are putting more stereotypes and more negative connotations in the world than you are positive ones. And that is a huge issue. It's not only the prosecution, it's not only the kangaroo courts, it's the entire system of Title IX, of the processes within the court. There's Mass and you have talked to fathers and people who've been falsely accused. There's 30 million loopholes you have to go through. And then there's loopholes to get another court date, and it's absurdity, pure absurdity.
Not to mention a money pit as well. It just completely and totally wrecks you financially to the point where you can't. Where it sets a lot of people up. The court system sets, in a lot of ways, sets people up to fail, and we need to change that.
The entire system sets people up to fail. And this has been brought up, and I know this is probably really obvious, but I think another thing too, when you think about it, is you got to think about who they're targeting when it comes to false accusations too. Let's be honest, you're always trying to target somewhere, you're trying to get away with something. I put stories above, way above now, because we've been posting so many. And there are two different colleges, and they're college football players who got falsely accused. And I would have to find the stats on this. But I was looking into it more, and they specifically target people with certain careers, obviously, as you see, actors, politicians, football players.
Just curious, Katrina, was Reuben Foster accused players you're talking about? Was
Sorry,
the accused college football player, was Reuben Foster one of them?
I haven't looked into him. The two I at least posted, one of them is from Connecticut University, and I'm trying to remember his name. It was a big issue though, because he purposely had sex with him and one of his teammates to try and gain sympathy for her boyfriend. She completely planned on saying rape so she would get sympathy from her boyfriend, and then admitted to lying a year later after these guys lost their scholarships and were in jail and everything. And she was supposedly given a year in prison, but then they gave her bail. So, Reuben Foster is not a person I've put in there. Though I know he's a big case, and I'll just link him.
They really don't care about the men who end up in prison and who themselves might be raped because of all of this. They just don't care. As long as they get to have their control of the narrative, they're perfectly fine with all of it. And nobody seems to really be allowed to question why like with Kavanaugh, a 30-year-old accusation only surfaces the moment he becomes a judge, and like he gets this nomination that might give power to a certain political groups that were very unpopular at the time. And
Oma, talking about the 30 years
Yeah.
thing, did you know one of the things when they were amending VAWA that sadly passed through the House and Senate and is going to be signed by President Biden, one of the things they add in there is that it's now officially, like, if you got raped and it was like 30 years ago, it's still considered completely valid.
They have trouble like finding evidence of rapes that happened the previous day. So it's mind blowing that they'd put that in. I mean, I can understand wanting to help real victims, but at the same time, you've got to go to the police right away as soon as possible. Don't have a shower. Don't change your clothes. Don't do anything. Go straight to the police. That's what they advise. Just go straight there. It's you can't really do this after 30 years. I mean, it's hard enough proving that there was no consent, when it happened an hour ago. It's just, I mean, I really want them to be able to prosecute things from 30 years ago with total accuracy, but it's
If they found
I don't
out
think it's
how,
going to work.
and honestly, if they found out how a rape kit was done, I promise you there would be less accusation, like false accusations made, because rape kits that are made are horrible to go through. They're horrible.
Yeah, I've only heard little bits of what happens, but it doesn't sound like a fun time. It's a very intimate procedure that necessary, but not nice. And honestly, it's an awful thing to put a rape victim through right after they've already been violated. And I can understand if women wouldn't want to go through it, and men too, because you can, as a man, you can have that rape kit done as well, I think, as provided the police actually give you the time of day. But yeah, okay, so I think we should probably take this out. Dark, if you could do the outro.
Sure. This has been the Men's Human Rights Server Friday chat. We are here every Friday at 4 p.m. UK time, which is 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. This has been an amazing chat. Thank you all for being here. This has been a great topic. Thank you everyone for talking about it, sharing experiences, sharing all your points. We always appreciate you. If you ever have a recommended topic, you can always message Ben or Human, Blue Orange, or myself. And hope to see you all next week.
Thanks, guys. Great chat. This one should definitely, I got to go like right now to work. But this one, once it's edited, we should definitely post it on Reddit.